Before anyone asks why we're reviewing the source points now when everyone else has seemingly already talked this speaker up, just note we do our best. Sometimes happens, like when a shipment gets left on a loading dock for months without being delivered and no one notices. Thanks to Christie's, hey, whatever happened to those speakers you were sending us? It's finally our turn to talk about the third loudspeaker from the Jones Mofi collaboration and the first floor standing speaker to come out of this team. Weighing in at just under 100 pounds, the 888 follows the SourcePoint 10 and 8 two-way stand-mounted speakers, and all three speakers share a very similar design language that include a multifaceted front baffle and magnetic grills. Now, our sample is shown in a new satin white ash finish, exclusive to the 888s. This three-way ported design utilizes two 8-inch paper cone woofers, a single 8-inch paper mid-range driver, and a single 1¼ inch soft dome tweeter, which rests inside the mid-range driver in a concentric fashion. The incredibly well-built and inert cabinet, 4 drivers, and rear-facing ports all combine for a reported frequency response of 32 Hz to 30 kHz with a nominal impedance of 6 ohms that can dip as low as 4.5 and a sensitivity of 87 dB. To get the most out of Mofi's tower speaker, I recommend using a high-quality amplifier that can confidently handle impedances down to 4 ohms. Now, I paired the Marantz M1, Yamaha 2000A, and HiFi Rose's 280 integrated with the 888s with really good results. I also briefly tested these with the Onkyo RZ30, which performed well, but admittedly, I didn't spend a ton of time with that combination. If you are looking to build a home theater around the towers, just make sure your AVR is rated for 4 ohms. To set up the source points, I followed the manual's recommendation, and I arranged the Mofi speakers to form an equilateral triangle with my listening position. Now, since we sit about 10 feet away, or a little over 3 meters, I placed the speakers 10 feet apart in our room, and this put the speakers 4 feet from the side walls and 2 feet from the front wall. Now, the manual advises angling the speakers slightly inward so they point more towards the main listening area instead of straight ahead. And this placement worked really well in our space, and it gave the speaker a clearer sound and more precise imaging. And in this position, the 888's in-room measurements were impressive and shockingly consistent across the entire width of our 9-foot sofa. Aided by some room boundary compensation, you can see that the source points easily hit below 30 Hz in our room, rolling off in the mid-20 Hz region, which is near as makes no difference, at least to me, full range in my book. The entire response shows a gradual downward slope from the bass through to the mid-range and treble, which some of you may say resembles a Harman like curve. What's more, directly on and even slightly off axis, the response and tone of this speaker doesn't change too much, which further speaks to the loudspeaker's just overall quality of design. Right from the start, there is a lot to appreciate about the 888s. They provide a balanced and natural sound that is just easy to listen to at just about any volume. In other words, you shouldn't have to worry about handpicking only the best Diana Krall recordings, so go ahead and listen or watch whatever you want. Bass is deep. I'm talking, is that subwoofer still on kind of deep? I used Enima's new single, Hypnotize, first on the Yamaha amp, and that song has some bass drops that hit hard, and the 888s hit me with a wave of bass pressurization that made me smile. Switching my amp to the HiFi Rose and Marantz M1 produced a bit more detail and speed from the two 8-inch woofers, which I kind of preferred. I could honestly go either way when it comes to adding a sub or not, but I think if you're looking for a speaker that can get by without one, the 888 should be on your list. The good news is you can always easily integrate a subwoofer with these speakers. They have enough bass energy and just headroom that you'll be able to blend them with a sub and tune both to your room pretty easily. The mid-range was near textbook perfect for me. Artists sounded grounded with a natural sense of weight and depth, something I always appreciate from a well-designed, coherent tower speaker. The 888s do a fantastic job at bringing music to life, whether you're listening to acoustic guitars, pianos, or just other instruments. They produce a rich, natural sound that remains clear and detailed no matter how loud the volume gets. This makes them great for everyday use. Intelligibility is very good, but if you struggle to understand dialogue, increasing the speaker's toe-in will pay dividends. As for the treble, the SourcePoints have the type of high-frequency reproduction you can listen to without worrying about listener fatigue. It may not immediately grab you or call attention to itself, good or bad, but give it a minute or two and you'll forget that you used to care about overanalyzing things like that. On a more critical note though, similar to the mid-range, while tonally on and off axis it's good, dispersion does appear to be just a little bit limited. It's possible to attenuate the treble's response up or down through the use of toe-in, which is the perfect segue to soundstage and dynamics. Pointed straight ahead, the SourcePoint soundstage is very broad, with a center image that is more horizontally stretched than what would occur naturally. As a result, when seated more off-axis or closer to one speaker or the other, sound does bunch to the side, and the speakers become very easy to locate in space orally. However, point the speakers in towards the center and the 888 soundstage while it locks into sharper focus, resulting in a soundstage that is still large but feels more kind of live or acoustic feeling than in studio or artificial. However, when I sat off to the far right or left side of our sofa, the speaker center image, it still drifted slightly to whichever side I was seated on, even when using an appropriate amount of toe-in. As for dynamics, I found the SourcePoints to be good, but maybe not the most explosive or contrasty. The roll-off at the top and the speaker's neutral tone cause some dynamic shifts, like say loud cymbal crashes or glass breaking, to lack the impact that I've experienced with other speakers, particularly our Titans or higher-end models from Bowers & Wilkins. While I expect this not to bother most listeners, I understand that some of you may strive for perfection in every little detail. And if that sounds like you, the 888's dynamics may feel a little bit more relaxed compared to certain alternatives. At $5,000 for the pair, the SourcePoints face some pretty stiff competition, beginning with the KEF R series meta, specifically the R11 and R7 metas. While the R11 metas are more expensive than the SourcePoints, the smaller R7 metas are priced right in line with the 888s. Now, I have not heard the R7s, but their specs appear to be fairly close to the R11s we used as a reference for more than a year. Now, the SourcePoints will produce lower frequencies with more authority and impact than both the R7 and R11 metas. And this could make the SourcePoints more appealing if you prefer just, a fuller sound that is slightly less neutral. The KEF R series is excellent, but if you're seeking something just a little less analytical and with more bass presence, the SourcePoints might be the better choice. Now, compared to the Bowers & Wilkins 703 S3, the SourcePoint will sound more neutral, dare I say laid back, with less treble and bass spike, or what I refer to as just being less contrasty. This may cause some listeners to find the 888 to be less intelligible or detailed when, in reality, what you're responding to is simply the neutrality of the speaker. Once you understand your preference, though, it will be easier to know what kind of sound you're after. You may even decide B&W feels more exciting to listen to and better at lower volumes due to their voicing. One thing to consider is the power needs, though, of the 700 series. The B&W is more demanding of a speaker, so you may need to factor that in, that added cost into your budget. The KLIPSCH FORTE 4 is a speaker I can see a buyer who has managed to steer clear of forums cross-shopping against the SourcePoint. They cost the same, but that's pretty much where their similarities end for me. The FORTE 4 is a phenomenal speaker with that kind of you are there sound or tone that few speakers not named KLIPSCH can match. That said, there are aspects of its performance that will likely make the measurement's first crowd never even consider the Fortes, whereas Andrew Jones's attachment to the 888s gives them just immediate street cred. If you prioritize technical accuracy, the SourcePoint in that respect is the, quote, better speaker. Now, both speakers are solid down low. That said, many of you may find the KLIPSCH sound up top to be too much of a good thing. Now, I could be happy with either, so go with whatever sound sounds best to you. Now, compared to our reference tower speakers, the SVS TITANS, this was a close one for me. The SourcePoint is by far the better constructed speaker. After listening to both speakers, though, head to head, it was pretty easy to determine that the SourcePoint offers a more traditional neutral sound. If you are more of a purist, this should be an easy decision for you. On the other hand, I like a speaker that's just a little bit more fun. The Titans can play just as low as the 888s, but they do so with more nuance and detail throughout the bass, mid-range, and treble, which leads them to sound more intelligible in comparison. Dynamics are also sharper and more focused on the Titans, but the soundstage of the Titans, that's what really solidified why I'm sticking with them. They maintain better, more stable imaging across our long sofa compared to the SourcePoint, though I will admit the Titans' tonality did appear to shift a bit as I moved about. And while I may be sticking with our Titans, the 888 is a great speaker and my favorite of the SourcePoint line. For the right listener, this Andrew Jones design speaker brings a lot of positives to the proverbial table in an incredibly competitive marketplace. So that's it. That is finally my take on Andrew Jones's SourcePoint 888 tower speaker. What did you guys think? Sound off in the comments if you have a question or I missed a comparison, like I always do. Leave it down below, because you never know, could end up on next Friday's episode of Unplugged, where we find out, did Christy like the SourcePoint 888? Stay tuned. Until then, remember, the only person who has to like the sound of your system is you. So happy listening, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. See you on the next video. Bye.